So much for coming. Thank you for being patient as we were finishing with some of the little technical things. This is my second class for 2025 so far this year, Dispelling the Myths of Guardianship and Money Management. So make sure that you've highlighted your name if you pre-registered. If you didn't, make sure you filled out one of the slips of paper that MCC provides. It is really important both to us and MCC because if, for instance, like my program doesn't have any funding source, and so sometimes if we're getting some grants or something like that, they want to know demographics of people that we're serving and we're reaching. So I'm talking fast because I'm a little bit behind. So y'all have to listen fast, okay? Because I'm going to talk fast. So y'all speed up your listening, okay? So make sure that you've done that, you've signed in or highlighted your name and put your name on one of those little pieces of paper to register for a door prize. Sorry guys from Zoom land, but we will draw for that here at the end. This is going to be very informal, so if you need something else to eat or drink, just get up, help yourself. Let us know if there's anything that you need. If you needed certificate of attendance or CEUs, be sure and let me know so that I can get those to you as well. And the questionnaire that I left on the table, please fill that out and leave it for me because that too does help me to know going forward how to make things better or different topics that you might be interested in hearing about. I always love if it's something that I feel like I'm not well enough versed in to do myself, then I want to bring in experts and get us the education that we're wanting and the information that we need in the community. So let me know about that. So I know some of you have taken your time out of some really busy schedules to be with us today, so I really appreciate that. It's going to be packed with information. If we don't get to your question and you did have a question, we're all going to stay around for a bit afterwards, so if you can stay, and we didn't get to answer your question, please let us know. Stay, visit with us afterwards. And of course, we do have our business cards over there too, so you can email or call if you do need to hurry out. So if you're not familiar with Friends for Life, Friends for Life is a charity that was created 36 years ago. And basically now we can serve some folks from birth to death, okay, for all of their life, okay. We have 8 different programs currently, and at the deepest heart, the very core of Friends for Life is our goal as we try to strive in helping individuals and families stay healthier and happier and safer in their own homes as long as possible and as independently as possible. We have some of our programs are actually serving some folks in about 82 different counties. So we haven't made it to all 254, but we are in about 82 different counties with some of our programs currently. If there is already a program in place that is like ours, then we don't need to be there. We're not about duplicating services that are already there. But if there's a gap, we want to be able to fill that gap with our services so that we can better help people. So because of the 8 programs that we have, the 82 counties, all of our programs are really, really growing. I know our adult daycare has a wait list. So we have outgrown our capacity. So I do want you all to know that we are planning on building a new campus with your help by sharing our mission, volunteering, contributing financially, whatever that looks like for you. We're going to be able to create a really compassionate continuum of care like you've never seen before, okay? So we're working towards that goal, okay? Plans are in place, but logistics. We just really want to be able to meet those ever-increasing needs of our population. Currently in Lifeline's program, that's my program, I provide care consultations. Oh, I don't think I told you my name. Hi, I'm Christine. I'm the Lifeline's program director at Friends for Life. Currently I provide care consultations, care kind of coordination, information referral, speaking engagements. I bring in experts and provide other kinds of educational events as well. Love pulling in partners and experts in their field. I realized about 6 months into this role that in taking all of our intake calls and things like that, there's a lot of confusion about money management and guardianship, at least the 2 programs that we provide. So I know out in the world, there's a lot of different entities that use the phrase money management, and it means all kinds of different things. Right? It's not ever the same thing. So that's when I realized I really wanted to go ahead and offer something that I could bring in our experts, because when people have misunderstandings and misinformation, they begin circulating that around in the community, then other people get on board with that and they're repeating, and you're just perpetuating this cycle of misinformation. So, the best way to do that is, we just need to get everybody to have a good understanding, and then you can help other people understand when it's appropriate and what is accurate and what isn't. So, does anybody remember Zig Ziglar? Anybody heard of him? That's the guy's name, Zig Ziglar. Okay, so Zig Ziglar actually said once, money isn't the most important thing in life, but it's reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. I was like, yeah? Anybody in here kind of agree with that, right? And I know some people I've heard talk about like out-of-body experiences. Have you ever heard anybody talk about out-of-body experience? So there's somebody, we don't know who to give credit to because the author's unknown, but they said, I'm having an out-of-money experience. Anybody relate to that one, right? Yeah. So, okay, so without any other delay, I want to, we've got just a host of really great featured speakers today. I'm going to introduce Katherine Beechner. She's our Money Management Program Director with Friends for Life. Prior to making her work home Friends for Life, she also was employed 20 years, self-employed 20 years, developing, writing, and managing liberal arts classes. So it's like, oh, now I think of all these other things I can talk to Katherine about. So she's extremely compassionate, and we're really fortunate to have her. She joined us about 6 years ago. She became our director about a year ago. This program right now is serving approximately 300 plus clients, and they are in about 82 different counties in Texas. So Katherine, come clear up some confusion for us.
Okay, everybody. So yes, I'm Katherine Beechner, and I direct the Money Management Program at Friends for Life. And we have to start with the fun stuff, of course. So can you guys see the writing? So it's just a little cartoon. And the kid's saying, hey, Mom, right, today in Money Management class, we learned the value of locating the nearest ATM. I don't know. Some of you will find that very funny. Some of you will think, well, yeah, but that's the last reference to ATM we're going to make in money management. Okay. So I'm going to start you, go ahead, with a little bit of background, very brief, about how Friends for Life began the money management program. Then after that, we're going to go and discuss some misconceptions about what money management might be, what it actually isn't. We'll clear those out of the way, and then we'll begin talking about actually what it is and how we do that, and finish with some questions and answers. So in the beginning, Friends for Life program started, the money management program started in 1994, as you see, and we just came alongside with AARP, did some basic, largely volunteer help with our program. We then morphed into a little more formal program and became what's called a representative payee. Does anybody recognize that term at all here? Representative payee. And we still use volunteers at that time. They actually wrote checks, balanced checkbooks, etc. They don't do that anymore. Our volunteers still help us a lot, but not in that capacity. And at that time, we were very neighborly. We just pretty much served our neighborhood and a little beyond. And we began growing. So we first grew by becoming a fiduciary. That's just a fancy word for representative payee. It's all the same thing, basically, but it's done for veterans, okay? And so we do that now, too. There was a program closed down. We accepted their clients, and then we had a big boom in 2020. Do you see the 1,100 clients with that Genesis program? That's a lot of people to care for and manage their money for. That program closed, so we had Social Security and APS and many care providers saying, hey, could you please? And yes, we did. So today we're managing the income for about 300 clients, and they are all over Texas. She said 82 counties. I don't know, I'm not sure if that includes money management. I think it does. We're definitely all over Texas. And you see the amount of conserved funds that we take responsibility for, and our staff is now a staff of 8. And then volunteers, as I said, they'll help with filing, making phone calls to our clients, things like that, our volunteer help. So moving along, what is money management exactly? I did mean to say this at the beginning. I'm kind of throwing out a lot of terminology and things as we go, and I'm assuming you, like me, at the beginning wouldn't necessarily understand it. don't worry about it because it's going to become more clear and we're going to repeat. I think by the end, you'll really understand some of the things you don't at this point. So I'm just going to throw out some more terminology. Excuse me, money management is not just financial education. It's not investment counseling. It's not budgeting assistance or bill pay. It's not emergency funding for bills that someone can't pay. That's not what this does. Before we go on to what it is, we're going to do a quick little, everybody see your handout, this pretty handout that Easter made us? And the thing, I hope nobody sat there while you were waiting for us and studied this, because I jumbled the fact side, so it doesn't match the myth that it's supposed to answer, because we're going to do a little guesswork. No stress, it's just for fun. Try to kind of help us engage with some of this. So I'm going to read the first myth. Friends for Life Money Management Program is a financial investment counseling program. Myth. Now, just for a few seconds, go ahead and look down the fact side and see if you find something that you think might be the correct fact. Okay, so I'm going to help you out. I didn't even use really the same terminology, and the myths and the facts, probably very confusing, but the actual fact is we are a representative payee program. Very different from the myth. Okay, number 2 myth, that Friends for Life Money Management Program is the same as a durable financial power of attorney, that we are power of attorney for people. Yo, you have to really appreciate this. I had to look it up for you. Okay, so we have limited authority. We do not have the same authority that a power of attorney does, and we frequently have to explain that when people call in, and that's something we frequently have to explain. There are things we cannot sign for, cannot act for, that a POA can, okay? So myth number 3, that it's a budgeting assistance and bill pay program. Not technically, not really, not that. Y'all want to look around, see? So what we actually are, again, is a representative payee service. We give more than assistance. We actually manage accounts, and we do pay bills. All right, myth number 4. Everybody together? Myth number 4. The Friends for Life money management agent can steal all my money. That's a scare. Because your money is sent to an account managed by Friends for Life. So it can be scary. I'd be a little scared. However, the Friends for Life money management program is covered with regular audits, all kinds of checks and balances, and even liability insurance. So, and besides, the people we hire are compassionate, caring people to start with and are filtered that way as well. Moving on to number 5, myth that money management, Friends for Life, provides supplemental funding when someone can't pay their electric bill, for instance, okay? That's a myth, and I'm going to answer it. See if you can make lines. I should have told you that at the beginning. Some of you may have. So the actual fact for that is that while Friends for Life does it, well, it's the one that says client income sole funding. Okay, so this is not that kind of program, although we do often help clients connect with those kind of programs. That's not what we are. We are managing their own funds and allocating them to their needs. Okay, myth number 6, that a pay service cannot be changed. Once you're in, you can never, ever leave. Okay, that's a myth. Do you see the one that says medical determination may or may not change, but specific payee is a choice? So some people do have a medical determination that they must have a payee to receive their funds from Social Security. However, there is a lot of choice in that. And also, once a payee, we have had people who are with us for a while and a new payee situation arises, we pass them on. It is number 7, we're almost done. Okay. I get to spend all my money every month. Sorry. Exactly. That's exactly right. So, okay, you can look. We have very few options left, but that one is agents. Always, I think we had a typo, give, spending money, pay bills, and save a little. So the goal here is that the agent is trying to help with the responsible management, right, of funds. So they're making sure that the bills are paid, making sure there's food, making sure there is spending money, but they're also trying to help the client save a little bit because everybody knows, my gosh, something happens, you need to move, right? That kind of thing. And number 8, that the money management program operates like a full customer service bank. And that is a myth. We are frequently telling our clients we are not a customer service bank. So you see there's only one option left. We are not a customer service bank. There are rules and regulations that we didn't create, that Social Security requires us to follow, or the VA requires, etc. Okay, so what is money management now that we kind of know what it's not? Representative payee services set up by Social Security or the Civil Service Retirement. These are funds. These are names of funds. Fiduciary services, again, remember that's just a fancy word for managing the accounts for vets, for the VA. We usually manage Social Security disability incomes more than anything else. However, we do have plenty of clients who have other pensions. So the point made on private pensions, it's super important there that the client actually wants Friends for Life to go ahead and manage that. And so they've got to reroute it to the account we opened, blah, blah, all of that. We can also help people with their it's teacher retirement and such as that. Some of our clients get other funds or even have disability, Social Security, and work a part-time job within the allowance with Social Security and send their earnings so we can compile that and manage that for them as well. Go ahead.
You wouldn't ever run into a case where either an employer or maybe a private pension or something wouldn't want to redirect it, would you?
Because it's dependent on the client themselves. That is their decision. And if the client says, I want you to route this to that bank account, I've never heard of a problem. So we have set up separate accounts. This is how. This is more going into a little bit of how. And we talked about a lot of what. This is going into how. Each client has their own account. So each client has an account in their name, and we are listed as the representative payee, but it's their account. So we have 300 clients, and we have at least 300 accounts because it also, one of them, maybe the prior one, somewhere it says that, so if I have a client who has a Social Security income and a VA benefit income, I will have 2 separate accounts for that client. The Social Security goes into one, the VA goes into the other, and then we send out the bills and the personal spending like that. Okay? Bills paid directly to the provider of service. That's a really important thing. This is not one of those cases where, say, we're the payee for someone and they call and they say, okay, my electric bill's due $250. I need you to put some money on my card so I can go pay that. That's like a no. I mean, I don't mean we won't pay it, but that's not how we operate. What we do is we work as soon as we get a client to set up the bills coming straight to our organization. It's still in their name, it's still their bill, but the mailing address changes. And so then we have that. We can pay the bill from that. We keep a record of the paid bill with that. We slip it with their bank statement, and it's all audited. We also have debit cards that we issue. And those are great. Those are those help. They're kind of protectable a little bit, quite a bit actually. And often we definitely put personal spending on that and often grocery money, things like that. The personal spending is at our client's discretion. They can do what they want to with their allotted personal spending. And we do try to save very much. That's important.
Katherine, do you ever run into a situation maybe when somebody with, say, dementia, for instance, cannot really comprehend how to use a debit card?
Okay, if that ever occurs, something's going to come up here later that's going to kind of bounce off of that. But no, but it's a good question. We do have some very, very disabled clients with great needs. But those clients, when we are doing our intake, we make sure that they have active caseworkers and people that we can network with, and they can, and so we can genuinely take care of that person. So in that case, sometimes depending on the situation, the caseworker, the card could be held by, if that's a trustworthy person and it's a totally legitimate situation, there are ways that we work with that. So what else does Representative Payee program, at least at Friends for Life, do? We do a lot of advocating. Probably daily. And Christine helps us with that. When we find, one thing I discovered when I started working in this program was, wow, I mean, it's called money management, but it never occurred to me that if you are up in the middle of someone's money, you're up in the middle of their whole life. So, so we find out all kinds of needs and all kinds of situations arrive. We frequently reach to protect our clients, and I can't name names or anything, but literally as I was walking out the door to come here, we've got a client we're taking care of, and someone else is trying to pretend they're the landlord. We happen to have seen and spoken with the landlord. So we're connected, thankfully. Someone else sent us a document, a little typed thing, saying, I'm the landlord, they owe me this much money, and all. At first it was confusing, but we realized what was going on, and we were able to protect them from that. It's really, really good. We also advocate for other services. We've had people, there was a dear couple we've had for years, living in an apartment that the rent was just going way too high. It was painful, to care about them and watch what was happening and how little money they had left to eat on, for personal care. So we networked, we reached out, we made phone calls, we found some places maybe they could move to and afford, helped them fill out the applications, got them in one. It was wonderful. It just recently happened, and we all rejoiced. So there's that kind of thing that happens too. We also help with the benefits. We help apply for like the Medicare deferred payment, where Medicaid will make that payment, and we will update their Medicaid applications, things like that. Help them with their SNAP benefits, and that's food stamp benefits. Back to that thing about protections, it's a big responsibility. We totally recognize that, and we take it very seriously. So we have all kinds of protections in place for our clients. The first thing we do is in-house. We have checks and balances, and some of those are, there's one person, say we call them a specialist. They talk straight to the client. They'll authorize, okay, this is a payment we're going to make out of your funds. Then another one, our accounts payable, will actually set up the check. Then another one, not the accounts payable, she doesn't sign any checks. Someone else signs checks. And then someone else altogether, who's done none of that, reconciles the bank statements and all of that. Okay, then after that, Social Security has regular audits, and the VA does. Those are way more extensive. And then finally, we also have liability insurance. So who are our clients? Yes, they are seniors and people with disabilities who, for the money management department, they would have struggle being able to keep themselves afloat with their money. They're also often very vulnerable to exploitation, and it's good to have a middleman in there watching for that. They do have to be deemed by a physician as unable to manage their money. So we can't just go say, hey, that's not a thing. And they can't even they can't even. If it's Social Security funds, Social Security Administration requires a physician's statement explaining the situation and why and what. And you notice this last part, it's interesting because it's not always a permanent issue. We have had clients that we've had for quite some time, but they have improved. And over time, we begin to see, you know what, they're talking to us about their income, how much they have left, what their bill is. And we realize there's no reason for us to do this. They can do this. And we'll write a letter to Social Security, let them know, they become their own payee, things like that.
Sometimes they try that, and it doesn't work like that. And then they ask us to
That's
do
true.
it again.
That's true. Yeah. Okay. Again, this is just a little more about clients. This is more, it's really more like how do we help our clients. One of the things we don't have ongoing actual case management. If anybody in here is or is connected to social working, we could actually use a volunteer or two if they need community service hours or something like that to help us with some of that we bump into with our clients. Lifelines program. Lifelines program is great. Christine does that. And so, like I said earlier, we'll become aware of a need in a client's life that we can't just stop all managing their money to go take care of, right? And so, I mean, we've had people with major plumbing issues, like serious, where they couldn't even continue living in their home and not enough money to pay for it, yada, yada. So we start reaching out and we ask Christine, could you help us find somebody who could help this person? And we have been able to do that a lot, okay? If the client's local, we connect them with our wonderful volunteer coordinator, Kay. She gets food sent out to them and maybe rides to doctors and things like that. If they're not local, we look for local assistance for them. Now this, in discussing who our clients are, I don't know if you can see this very well. Sometimes we get really sweet affirmation from our clients like this, and I'm gonna read exactly like it is for you. We took the name out. To whom it may concern, my name is B, and I am a client, a friend for life, and I have some mental disorders, have been hospitalized, I have PTSD, among other disorders. Friends for Life have taught me to prioritize and to live within my means and to save my money, and their kindness has a positive impact on my day-to-day living, and I truly believe without Friend for Life, my chance of being homeless are greater. They make me feel that somebody cares, and most of all, I feel safe with Friend for Life. I feel loved and cared for. Yours truly, B. That's what keeps us going. That's why we have this program. So there are ways to make a referral. Basically, Christine is our first person. If anybody knows of somebody that you're trying to get a rep payee for, or they want one, or whatever it is, we send you to Christine. She does initial screening and says, okay, are we really going to be able to meet your needs? And if that is a yes, then it goes on to Donna, and she does a slightly more formal thing, looks a little deeper. Is this really going to be someone we could actually help? If the answer is yes, then it comes to me. I fill out a formal application to Social Security, and we get going.
And that process takes a little bit of time. We don't necessarily hear back the next day from Social Security. Actually, it takes a few months, correct?
Yeah.
Usually, 4 to 8 weeks or something.
Yeah, 4 to 8 weeks.
So it's not a super quick process, which is really sad when people find themselves in a crisis and they're waiting for their money because Social Security won't release it unless they have a rep payee, right?
But even then, it's really neat because we can advocate for them and do all the time. We will call landlords who are about to evict them, right? And we'll say, hey, hold on.
We're working
the
on it.
money's coming. We're going to take care of it. And they do. They usually do.
Yeah, so a few minutes. Anybody have any questions real quick for Katherine? Or?
You've got a good question. Say it one more time.
So Brett said, if somebody still has ownership of the account, can they go and spend it any way they want to if they're our client?
They don't actually have ownership of the account. In other words, they can't go to the bank. We've had one or two try that. And the bank says, no, you're not the rep payee. Now, it is in their name, and so it's all, there's a record kept with all of that. But unless the rep payee says yes, which
Because
is the reason it is a program.
So they literally have no control over their money.
Not ultimate control, that is true. And that is why it's so necessary that's why they have to have a doctor say, look, this is desperate. Here's the condition. Here's why. Otherwise, Social Security will not set them up with a rep payee for that reason.
Could it be any doctor, or is it tough to get a doctor to write that? No, it can be a family doctor. Does it need to be a neurologist or
Any doctor. It can be a psychiatrist.
I've seen a
just
lot
as
of
long as it's a
psychiatrists.
medical doctor.
Yeah. And I've
Not
seen
a
medical.
social worker, not a nurse.
Yeah.
You know, it has to be somebody that is actually a doctor, whether it's a psychiatrist or a PCP or like an NP, a PA, because the doctor signs off on those.
And even then, if some quirk happened and somebody got in the system who really didn't need it, we can tell. Like I said, we can tell. And we have more than enough to handle. We're very happy to send them on their way, so yeah.
Yeah.
Does
And
that
so
help?
one of the first things that happen is, if I'm correct, is that they close the account that they currently have.
Yeah.
And open up a new account. And so that makes, I was thinking that's going to help answer your question. So that's how that kind of avoids that. Now, sometimes, they've got enough cognitive ability to figure out, maybe what bank or whatever, try and do whatever, but they actually close that account, totally. So they don't even have access to that anymore.
But bear in mind, this is a service that's not for everybody. It's for very special needs situations. And it works for those.
could you give examples of the type of people and the scenarios, like it's dementia, or is it just a capable person that's just making bad decisions? Like, what are some
Okay.
common examples, situations you see?
We have a lot of mental illness clients with schizophrenia, paranoia, and things like that. And it's obvious when we talk to them. We have had people that call us with various personalities and different names. They're very high-ranking needs. We do have some, especially some seniors, who maybe have early onset dementia. They're just as sweet and wonderful as they can be, but they have lapses that are pretty vital. And so we work with them too.
And IDD?
We have IDD, and those are usually come to us with their casework in intellectual disabilities and
Autism, stuff like that.
yeah.
Down syndrome.
Yeah,
all
people
those
with
kinds of
guardians. We have some of those.
Don't you sometimes take people who live with their parents, who are their guardians, but they ask someone else to manage their money because of the conflict of the parents do it?
That can happen, but we only do adults. They have to be 18 or older. Yes.
With IDD,
Yes, and we do.
someone else besides
If the person has already needed a guardian and the guardian desires someone else to take that responsibility, yes.
And
do that.
sometimes they might not be a legal guardian. They might just still be living with the parent or whatever, and they just don't want to have that extra responsibility.
Oh, I see.
Or have fingers pointed or something like that. And then, we get a lot of stuff like that.
In that case, that's one of those cases where Social Security disability has said this disability is too great for us to believe that this disability money could go straight into their hands and do anything positive for them. So if that's already been figured out, that we have nothing to do with that. If that has been decided on, and that's reviewed, we get privy on the reviews for that constantly. Those situations are reviewed, and if a client no longer qualifies, then they're no longer in that program. But if they are, yes, then Social Security will sometimes ask us, can you be the payee? This person has to have one. We can't release their money unless they do. Would you please be the payee?
And so if you want to know more about like who makes good referrals or who do we typically get referrals from and stuff like that, let's keep moving, because we did get such a late start, and I hate to do that, but Please, if you can stay later, and Katherine will be here to answer questions, or you can reach out individually to myself or Katherine. Katherine is the expert. I'm not. I just know a little. And then, so let's do that, but let's go ahead and move forward since we're running so far behind. So now I want to go ahead. This is even a little bit meatier. So this is about our guardianship program. Anybody seen Guardians of the Galaxy? Right? Okay, so yeah, so love it. Okay, so we've got like Drax and Lila, and we got Rocket, and we got Groot, and all that. Well, there's some really great quotes that came out of that movie, and so one of them is Lila. She actually had two. She was like, "We're guardians of the galaxy, and we'll make sure they're safe." And she said, "It's good to have friends, you know." And then there's Groot. I am Groot. I am Groot's guardian. You know, and you know, you just, if you haven't seen it, it's a lot of fun. But anyway, so it's like now I think of our folks. Now I'm like, they're guardians of our galaxy, and they keep people safe. Okay, so Jennifer Seay and Cindi Brown are Guardianship of Person co-directors. Jennifer has worked in the program since 2018 when she received her Texas Guardian certification, becoming co-director in about 2023. She coached gymnastics for about 24 years prior to that, including assisting with the Special Olympics team. Cindi has been in the program since about 2003, also named as co-director in 2023. She has been a nationally certified guardian since about 2005. Previously, she was a hospice social worker and a nursing home ombudsman. This program is currently serving about 425 clients, a little over maybe, in about 51 different counties. Huge, finding more and more need all throughout the state. Needless to say, we're about to hear a wealth of information and knowledge from these two very, very passionate women.
Here's what we're going to go over. We're going to talk about guardianship in Texas. There are many other states that do have guardianship. Maybe I'm a little biased, but Texas is wonderful in our guardianship program. We're going to also talk about what happens once someone is appointed guardian, and then we're going to touch on monitoring the guardianship. And this, of course, is from the Karate Kid. Not everything is as you look or as it looks, you know. When we think about how guardianship is viewed in the media, one thing that comes up, Britney Spears, this one was everywhere. Everybody heard everything about it. And I mean, did you really hear much that was positive on the guardianship? You didn't. And some of the allegations that came out of that were there was a financial that the money was not used in her best interest. There was also an allegation that she was forced to take medications against her wishes. She was forced to attend therapy sessions at a facility where paparazzi were. And then also the other allegation that came out of that was that her father was abusive in some rights. We've also heard of Wendy Williams. This one's a little newer in the media. And right now, what even drove this or her into guardianship is the fact that she has been diagnosed with dementia, and her son had made purchases out of her account, which prompted the guardianship. And so and they were rather large purchases. And what they're talking about now, some of the allegations with this one is that initially she wasn't going to be allowed to visit her father on his 94th birthday. She was later allowed to go. But then also that she had been placed in a nursing home. She's actually in a secure unit and has been given very limited visitations and communication with family and friends. Also, Michael Orr, everyone remembers The Blind Side. Some of the allegations that have come out of that is that he was tricked into guardianship and he thought it was going to be an adoption and signed guardianship over. And then some of the other allegations were about the exploitation of his story and his image, especially after becoming a pro football player. And then we also have movies like I Care a Lot. It is a Netflix film. I am not endorsing this movie whatsoever. What happens in the movie, just to give you a little rundown, is that the guardian seeks out potential clients that have money, and she gets them declared incompetent. She then takes very large amounts of money as payment for her guardianship and basically takes everything from her. Now, I can't speak to whether or not these guardianships were warranted. I can't speak and say that all of these guardians were in the wrong with everything they did. There are a lot of factors which we're going to go through throughout this presentation. But what I can say is that you don't hear the good stories in the media. That's not what you're going to hear. You're not going to hear about the little guy who was homeless living in the woods that we were able to actually come in. We got him in a nursing home. We got him medicated. And there was a day, first time I went to see him, just giving you an example. First time I went to see him, he was in a diaper in the nursing home. His hair was standing out to here. And have you ever seen someone who has a look in their eye that you don't approach them? That's the look I got when I first went in to see him. A couple of months later, I go in and he is clean, he's dressed, he's groomed, he's sitting, watching TV. And I said, "Oh, how are you doing?" And he touched my shoulder. And I know for a lot of you that may not be a big deal, but given who he was, his story, and where he came from, that was huge because he looked me in my eyes. He had the most beautiful blue eyes. And it was just like, "Hi." And he smiled. And that is one of those things that I hold on to every day as I do this work. So there are a lot of good stories that come out of guardianship. So what is guardianship? According to the TGA, that's the Texas Guardianship Association, it is a legal process designed to protect vulnerable persons from abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Guardianship provides for the person's care and management of his or her money while preserving to the largest extent possible that person's independence and right to make decisions affecting his or her life. Why would a guardianship be needed? First and foremost, because of incapacity. In the Estates Code, it says that an incapacity is defined as an adult who is substantially unable to provide their own food, clothing, shelter, physical health, or their financial affairs due to physical or mental condition. Who determines capacity? Again, it has to be a physician. It could be a licensed psychologist, and then also it could be a nurse practitioner, but they do have to be under or supervised by a physician.
When we're talking about capacity, it doesn't necessarily need to be all of those things, does it? It could just be like maybe they're not able to manage their financial affairs, maybe find a safe place to
Right.
live, but they can dress themselves and because you have the long list of the different things.
And we're going to talk about, that's kind of like
Yeah.
the supports and services where we try other things less restrictive before we do guardianship. So if it was just maybe money management and they needed help otherwise, we probably would try to do that before we would do. So types of guardianship, there are six types of guardianship. There is guardian of person. So guardian of person is kind of our deal here. We're the directors for guardian of person. And we make sure that the person has a safe, clean place to live. We make sure they're getting all their medical appointments. Again, like she said, food, clothing, shelter, making sure all that's happening. In Friends for Life, we call the guardian, we're calling care managers, because we literally go and manage their care. We manage every aspect of their care. Where they live, we visit them at least once a month and go in and make sure that they're living in a safe environment. We go different times of the day, just to make sure that it's not just we go at 10 o'clock every Tuesday. Well, of course, they're going to be really pretty at 10 o'clock every Tuesday because they know we're coming. So we definitely go. We go to all environments to visit. If they're in nursing home, of course, nursing home. But some of our clients with learning disabilities, they work, they go to a day program, and they live in a home. So we're always monitoring all the places that they're living. And then there's guardian of estate. So guardian of estate, just in itself, they handle the financial, and there's an amount limit that goes with guardian of estate. I think it's $250,000 now before it qualifies to be an estate. And so our guardian of estate department handles all their money, kind of like money management, only kind of bigger, because they pay all their bills, they make sure they get all their income, and they literally have a letter of guardianship showing that they're guardian of estate. Temporary guardians. So temporary guardians, they used to call them emergency guardians. So Typically, they don't do a lot of temporaries anymore. I'm not sure. Every county we serve, and I think they already said we cover like 80-something counties in Texas, and I'm pretty sure guardianships in most of those counties. It just depends on the judge. But a lot of times we'll get a temporary guardianship if imminent danger for safety, or if somebody's income, like if somebody we know they're actively pulling money out of that account and they're taking all their money, then we can go to the judge and say, we need a temporary guardianship. Now, the thing about a temporary guardianship, we don't need and which this is kind of backwards from what we're going to talk about in a minute, what we need for a guardianship, but we don't need a certified exam. We don't need a certified medical exam for a CME. We just need to show that there's imminent danger. Somebody has reported this and it's imminent danger. We do have to have paperwork and all that, but we don't have to have a doctor note at this time. Also, temporary guardians are usually 60 days because we're just trying to get in there and investigate and find out immediately, like if it's personal danger, we're trying to get them out of there and get them into a safe place. If it's exploitation, we're trying to stop that bank account from being drained so that person's not losing all their money. But temporary guardianship does not, that's the one that does not, they could still have, no incapacity has been proven at that point. It's just temporary.
Which just to piggyback on that does mean that that client or that person does still have capacity. So
Incapacity is determined by the court. So until the court has said with medical records that they're incapacitated, they still have capacity, they still have their rights. Again, that's just emergency to try to get everything safe. Now we have guardian of person and estate. We have quite a lot of those to where we're guardian of person, and there's also a guardian of estate. Those, and just to let you know, the guardian person, we work with the estate department, but we are not the ones that handle the money and the person. We like to keep that separate, so we've got different eyes over here. We do work with them to go and do like inventories and things that, make sure and their property and things. And we have to go to the estate people and say, hey, they need this purchase, and then we coordinate and get them whatever they need. There's also plenary. So plenary just means total. It's total. Like we're over everything, complete. They pretty much lose their rights of decision making, and that's plenary, just a fancy word for total. And then there's limited guardianship. So limited guardianship just means that they still retain the rights, some of their rights. We're over part of it. So like, for example, I had a client one time that literally all we were guardian of was where she lived because she was easily exploited. She still had the capacity to make medical decisions for herself. She just could not make safe decisions on where she lived. So it was a limited guardianship because that's the only thing that we helped her with. So
would most of your cases be limited or?
no.
No, most of them are plenary
Yep.
because most of them don't have decision-making capacity. And we'll go over here in a minute, but they can also get some of those rights back. Like we've had people that maybe with life skills, they can go back to the court and get some of the rights back. So then that would be in a limited. Like we came into a plenary, but we can get a limited. So this one, I like this one right here because a lot of people like to know that this is available because a lot of people don't know it's available. So in Texas, you can designate somebody in advance of need. So what this is for a lot of times is, let's say that you're the parents of one with a learning disability or severe physical disability, and you're afraid like, okay, I'm the guardian, but what's going to happen if I pass away and I don't know anybody, I don't have any other family, which happens a lot. They don't have anybody else to go to. So you can literally go on and designate somebody in advance of need. Now in Texas, and again, I only know Texas, but it might be different. But in these cases, you can name actually 2 different people that you would like to be designate in case of your death to be the guardian. Now, in the end, it's the judge's decision, but they usually go with it unless it's somebody that disqualifies to be a guardian. Now, if those two people that you have kind of designated pass away before all this happens, or they're just not willing to do it, when the time comes, they're like, ooh, I don't know, that might, then the court's going to find another, like maybe a program to do it. We actually, go ahead.
I was just going to jump in here, and it is important to know, because we're running into this in some cases in other areas. But once a guardianship has been established, you don't just quit the guardianship, okay? There are ways for restoration, but let's say that a guardianship is established, the guardian passes away, well, there's still that need for a guardian. You can't just, the guardian passed away, I don't have a guardian now.
If somebody's declared incapacitated, there has to be a court hearing and a process to be declared not incapacitated. So yeah, we're running into that, but you can also do this for yourself, by the way. You can do this for yourself, and you can go in and fill out this form, and you can say, if I ever become incapacitated, if I get dementia or whatever, this is the person I want to be my guardian. And usually the court respects the decision you make. And you can also, interestingly enough, which I thought was super interesting, you can also say, I do not want Aunt Jane to ever be my guardian. And if you designate it in this thing, they will not appoint. Aunt Jane will never be your guardian. Now that has to be notarized, but the court pretty much always, unless they find out something different, they go by this designee. So we actually have quite a few that people have come to us because they need to know somebody's going to take over that guardianship, and so they have come to us they've designated Friends for Life to be the guardian. And just to know, if you have a child and you're the child, so if they're 18 or over and you want to be the person that's in charge of them, you have to go become a guardian. You're not. Once they turn 18, it doesn't matter what their disability is. You got to go declare and become a guardian. So 18 and up, you've got to become their guardian.
So when you were talking about two different guardians, is that more like if this person that I named first is approached and they're either not able, not willing, or dead, then you go to the second?
You want to have, a backup, yeah.
Does anybody ever designate co-guardians? Like they want two people at the same time?
They can, that is possible. I've never had it happen, but yeah, absolutely, you can have co-guard. That could get sticky, but yeah, I can see how that would get.
My husband and I are the guardians of our daughter.
Okay.
We can't have a third. We wanted to do.
Oh, okay.
So, but they won't allow us to do a designation of guardian in advance of me in the guardian when you have sole guardianship.
Oh, okay.
It has to go into a will. Everything has to go into a trust fund. The way it falls.
Okay.
Could everybody hear what she said? Because that was an interesting point. Would you repeat
Yeah,
that?
so my husband and I just went through this, and we're co-guardians of my daughter. My son is our only living family member that would be able to take care of her. The state will not allow you to have co-guardianship with more than two people.
I did not know that.
So, but we could not do this, a designation and guardian. She couldn't say who she wanted to be her guardian, and we couldn't, it had to go into like a will and trust kind of situation. Especially because we have a trust fund set up, that everything is funneled.
Okay.
So it gets real sticky on how that works. So it's kind of scary, like my son will have to go to court.
I become guardian, yeah.
On his own. We can't name him.
Right.
Wow.
If one of you passed and if you could only name two, and let's say your husband passed away before you did, could you go and alter
We
that
could, but if
guardianship
something
and name
happened to
them?
both of us at the same time.
That's when,
That's when it gets.
Yeah.
So, excuse me, but, so we also have a guardianship, and it was a very long, complicated, expensive process.
It is.
It is.
So are you saying that had, our gentleman that we do have guardianship over, if he had written something and had it notarized before he became incapacitated, that we could have avoided all of this?
He could have said who he wanted to be, absolutely.
No.
Is it that simple? We would.
Well, no.
We don't, you still would have to go to court, you would still have to do the legal
process.
process.
This is more so, I think, to protect, like if in the case of we had a lady in another area that she was the sole person for her daughter that was incapacitated, and so she didn't have any family members that would be willing to do that, and so she actually came and had us be designated in the future as the guardian. So no, the process cannot be no. That expensive process is still, it has to happen. Yes, I wish I could say no, but it is very expensive and long.
Carla?
Question, but you may come back, you may be going over it later.
Okay.
It has to do with that court process.
Mhm.
When I became a guardian, they sent letters to all my other children,
Mm-hmm.
asking if they had anything to say about it.
Yes.
Does that happen at every time the guardians change and at every level? even if
There's-
it is-
There's certain reasons.
notification,
Yeah,
yes.
they notify, and it's kind of a hierarchy of when somebody's going into guardianship, it is, I think it's, the way it is, I think it's spouse, parents, siblings, yes, to notify, this is what's coming up, do you have any objections to
Is
this?
it only the first time when they are declared incapacitated, or is it every time the guardianship changes?
If it's changed to another person, I'm sure it would be the same thing, because they have to make sure that we might not know something bad, and
Yeah.
you might know, and you would like, ooh, no, I don't want that person to be my guardian, because they've got to. There, it actually says anybody that makes bad decisions can't be the guardian. I don't know who to. I don't.
We're
know
actually
who,
going to talk about
We're not
yeah.
going to say bad decisions, because we all make bad decisions, but just decisions that would not be healthy to take care of somebody with a guardian.
So can anyone become the guardian?
We just kind of set that up.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
So what disqualifies a person to become a guardian is if they're a minor, you can't be a guardian. If it's another incapacitated person, we actually had, real quick, we had a lady one time that she was guardian of her grandson, and then she became declared incapacitated, and so they would no longer let her be the guardian of her grandson, so then the state stepped in and became the guardian. So if you're incapacitated, you can't be the guardian of somebody. So, and then anybody with a conflict of interest with the ward. So they literally ask you, does the ward owe you money, or do you owe the ward money in the process of it? And we had a guardianship one time. We were guardian of estate only. The daughter had bought the mom's house, and she hadn't finished paying mom off for it. There was no reason other than that she couldn't be guardian. And so as soon as she paid the debt off to the mom, we surrendered it over, and she became guardian. But she could not be the guardian, because that's a conflict of interest. If you're the guardian of estate, you're handling the money and getting the money. They won't allow that. So, and then a person convicted of certain crimes. So if you've been convicted of abuse of a child or an elderly person or somebody with a disability, if you have caused bodily injury to somebody, there's certain ones that they're not going to appoint you to be the guardian, and they do a criminal background check anyway to make sure that all that's. See, she does all those cute things. That's why she. And then who can make a referral? HHSC, which used to be DADS, which is the state. It's just they change their name to confuse us all the time. Adult Protective Services, which a lot of ours we've gotten from Adult Protective Services because people have been exploited, or the family members, unfortunately, are a lot of times the perpetrators that the reason we become guardian. Exploitation is a big one. A facility, we get a lot from nursing homes or providers that just say, hey, this person really needs somebody. They can't make decisions. A provider, which is like the same thing, like HCS provider or ICF or something. And then an interested person, you can literally write a letter to the court and let the court know, hey, this person, it's my neighbor, and I just feel like she is not, there's somebody coming over here all the time, and, she's giving them money and they're not coming back with groceries or things like that. You can make that referral to the court, and then the court sends out somebody to investigate it to make sure that is that way. So, and supports and services, that's money management is one of these alternatives to guardianship. It's one of our big ones. If all they need is somebody to help them do their money and pay their bills, but yet they can still live at home and live independently. Nobody wants them to go into guardianship. This is an alternative, and guardianship should be the last thing because it's very restrictive because you've got literally somebody's making your decisions for you, and nobody wants to be making decisions for any decisions if they can make them on their own. So representative payee, same thing. We have a lot of those clients at Friends for Life. We also do that. Supported decision maker, that is actually a contract, not like a legal, I guess, contract, but it's a contract where if, let's say, you can live on your own, you're independent, you don't need guardianship, but you might not understand all the things going on with your medical. I want somebody to go with me to the doctor and help me make this medical decision because I just don't feel comfortable doing it. You can actually write, it's the supported decision-making form. There's a form, and you can have somebody go with you and be that person to help you make those decisions. It's not a legal thing, and it's not. But if that's all you need, we don't want to do guardianship. Medical power of attorney. Sometimes people, to make decisions, if you've got somebody designated for that, and you're not to the point where you can still do other things, then you can have a medical power of attorney. Because when you're in guardianship, we make all those decisions for. So, durable power of attorney, just financial. Friends for Life, our process, we have a referral form, and that is the first form in the process. And we kind of send a packet when somebody calls in or emails or something and says, hey, I got somebody I really feel like they need a guardianship. We have a referral form that they fill out, and it kind of gives us that beginning information for us to start the process for the guardianship. We also require that person go ahead and get a certified medical exam. A certified medical exam is saying a doctor has said these are the things this person can no longer make decisions about. Again, it could be limited or full, but we need that to say a doctor's literally saying this. Once we get those two, we go out and we have our own form, and we go out and make sure that we think it's appropriate, and also can we help that person? Because there's people that we have, sometimes it would be wasting their time and ours because we can't do anything. Like we had a guy in the hospital, all he needed really was somebody to go. Actually, he needed somebody to visit him and find a nursing home. You can get that. Somebody else can help you with that. You don't want to go into a guardianship just for a visitor. That's not kind of what we do. It's very, very restrictive. So if once we go out there, and actually Jenny and I actually did that GAT, we were like, he does not need a guardianship. He does not need to be, even though the doctor had already said, he had actually said he can make medical decisions. He needs a friend or something else. And so we talked after we did it, the judge actually called us out on it and said, hey, this doctor said, and it's like, so we talked to the social worker and we're like, look, that is not what we do. We do not want to be guardian of somebody that does not need a guardianship, because that is not who we are. That is not what we do. If there's an alternative, that we don't want to do that. And so after we explained it to the social worker, she was like, oh, okay. She goes, I understand. And yes, we can get him placed and we can find volunteers to go visit. And I'm like, please, yes.
And I want to make a point here, just that we do not go out and solicit for guardianships. People come to us and they say, hey, here's this need. Can you fill it? We're not going out.
We have guardianships, dementia, IDD diagnosis, mental health diagnosis. Anyone that literally cannot,
Yes. And I will also say, well, I'm going to get into it here in a second.
Sometimes you get
I get ahead of myself. All right. So what is the legal process? The first thing that has to happen for us is going to be that referral. We have to have that referral. That referral tells us a lot of information. It tells us if there's any family that is involved, or it should. It should tell us, what kind of benefits they have, what kind of insurance they have. It should tell us where they're living. Just a lot of pertinent information that we would need if we were to move forward. Also, there has to be an attorney. You can't get a guardianship without going to court. It's just not going to happen.
And the court will appoint a guardian ad litem.
Yes.
I'm sorry, an attorney ad litem once this process is started, because that person that's going to go into guardianship has to be represented has to be represented by their own attorney. So
Yes.
you've got the attorney for the people that are trying to get the guardianship, and then the person needs to have also that, because that's protecting them also. Like, the attorney usually goes and visits with them and goes, ooh, I think they do need a guardianship. So
There's also, during that time, a guardian ad litem that would be assigned, and this is before the guardianship has been established, and they would go out to see, what is their take on it? What's their assessment? Do they believe this person needs a guardian?
kind of like what Carla was saying.
Yeah. So not only are we doing the assessment, but there's also someone from the court doing an assessment. And then, of course, you also have the attorney ad litem. Also, then, once that's done, we have to serve notice to the families and any interested parties. We kind of talked about what that line is and who it is that has to be served. And I'm going to say that at that point, if a family member, and this is Friends for Life, if a family member were to step forward and say, hey, I didn't realize this was going on, I want to step into this role, we will step back.
We've had a lot that we actually found the family through looking up family for the court. And once we found them, we're like, oh, we have lost touch with that person.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we didn't even know they were. And then they become guardians. So.
And real quick story, we had a client, actually, he had been estranged. We didn't even know he had a sister. Found his sister after 10 years. What had happened was he had had a motorcycle wreck, had a TBI, was in a nursing home, pretty close to a vegetative state. Mm-hmm. And once we found the sister, she started coming, started seeing him.
We moved him down to where they live,
so
and he had his family back.
There are all kinds of reasons why the family may not realize what's going on. But like I said before, for Friends for Life, it's always going to be better if you have a qualified and a good family relationship. Those are going to be the best guardians. Now,
they know the person much
and
better
also,
than we do.
everything we do is situational ethics, just putting that out there. There are also times when there are good family contacts. There is a good family system. However, the family does not want to be the one who has to make those hard decisions. They want to be mom. I want to be mom. I don't want to be guardian and mom. And so a lot of times a third person is brought in for that, or an agency.
So truly on a case-by-case basis.
Everything.
Everything we do.
Everything. Then an application is made. We send that in, and then a hearing is set. Once we have the hearing, then we have to post the bond, sign the oath if we are appointed. So what happens when someone is appointed guardian? The first and foremost, and usually for us, we pick it up the day that we have the hearing, is that we receive a letter of guardianship that tells everyone, what your authority is. You also receive your orders. We kind of say that that's like our little 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
It's like our Bible.
And they're person to person.
Yes.
It's case by case on those.
Yes, and that spells out what the guardian can and cannot do. And then we also have initial steps with the client. We have certain things, especially through all of the things that we are governed by, that we have to do within a certain amount of time. We need to go see them. We need to present them the Bill of Rights, which tells them what their rights are. We also have to set up a service plan. What are we going to do with them for the year? What are their goals? What can we help them achieve? Where are we headed?
That's different, right? Family guardians and agents.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
That point is where
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
We have deadlines for certain things. We have to get things done.
Monitoring the guardianship. So one of the things that we are required to do is we have to file with the court annually, and it's called an annual report. If we do not, or if a guardian does not, they can and will be removed. So it is a necessary. It is our duty to ensure that the client retains their benefits. I know we've talked a lot about maybe Medicaid, there's resource limits. We have to ensure that they have some money in their account, but not too much money, so that they don't lose those benefits. And so we are constantly monitoring
And being monitored.
that. Yes. Also,
monitored.
we are required to go out and visit the client monthly. That's a non-negotiable. We have several non-negotiables. And it is our duty to keep the court informed concerning the client. For instance, maybe we've already filed our annual report and 2 months later, we have a client who is in an HCS group home. They are suddenly getting moved into a nursing home. We have to let the court know that we have done it's called a more restrictive move. So there are certain things that we have to let the court know.
And we also, during, like with the annual report and all that, every year we're reassessing and assessing and to see if that person has changed. Maybe they can, we had one not too long ago, we went back and all they got was their right to vote, but they got a right back. So we're always looking for that to make sure that we're not making decisions that they are able to make now. So
Who monitors the monitor? Who monitors the guardian? It's going to be the court of jurisdiction for here. If it's Waco, it's going to be McLennan County Court. So
and we have, I don't know how many, we
51
have
counties right now.
We have 7 offices now for
Yes.
guardianship in the state of Texas, and each court is different, and they go by their county rules. So
We are also monitored through the JBCC, the Judicial Branch Certification Commission, and that's actually where our certifications come through.
and we're all certified.
Yes.
All the guardians are certified by the state. So
Other rules.
One of those also has a larger territory, right? I mean, like, out of the Waco office, you don't just serve or see.
oh no, it's usually
Yeah.
12 or 13 surrounding.
Yeah, so even though there's
Yeah.
7 offices, that's a lot.
It is a lot of counties.
It's a lot of area,
Yes.
yeah. Other rules and regulations that we're required to follow are the Texas Estates Code. We also have to adhere to the Texas Administrative Code. And then, of course, HHSC, because we do contract with HHSC.
We are always in an audit or getting out of an audit or going into an audit. Actually.
Constant. It's constant. I'm going to go ahead and pass out our myths and facts sheet. But if anyone has any questions, and like she said before, if you have any questions, our cards are over there. Feel free to grab them. You can give us a call. You can email.
I usually try and throw out some ideas and some questions to kind of, because sometimes I think we tend to forget if we're using acronyms like IDD, right, and things like that, that not everybody, knows about some of these things. Or even I was thinking when you started talking about the POAs, and I know you did too, Katherine, and that's like for a long time, I actually only thought a medical or durable power of attorney was valid if somebody was incapacitated, right? If they were maybe in a coma, an accident in a coma, or had dementia that it, whatever it may be, that they couldn't make those decisions for themselves. But there actually are instances where you can get a POA that's effective immediately, and the person actually is not necessarily comatose, or, with severe advanced dementia or something like that, but they've agreed to have somebody manage, whether it be a durable or medical power of attorney right then at that moment, while we would maybe think they could still make some of those decisions on their own. So, there's just so many different variables, but if you think of any questions or anything, please feel free to stick around or email, call, whatever you need to do, whatever's going to be easier for you. I want to thank Katherine and Cindi and Jenny for the great information, the great PowerPoints, really get you thinking. Share with other people. There may be other people that need this information that weren't here today. So I'm always like, please share with other folks. I also want to thank MCC because they always let me host educational events like this free of charge. A lot of places and a lot of churches have gotten more and more where they want to charge you, whether you're a nonprofit or not, to be able to use a space even for a small event like this. So I really do appreciate MCC for sure, just being so easy to work with and do that for us all the time. Most of all, thank you guys for coming. So really appreciate you and your time today that you spent with us.